I never expected a simple family trip would turn into one of the most haunting and revealing genealogical journeys that I would ever go on. A journey that would last almost 3 years. My name is Tara Crawford. I'm a volunteer search angel here at DNAngels. One afternoon, I was talking to my step grandfather about his family tree. And that's when he revealed to me that he didn't know who his mother was. He thought her name was Dorothy. She left when he was 2 years old, and he never saw her or heard from her again. Growing up, he was not allowed to ask any questions about her. Nothing that would reveal who she was or where she went. But around the age of 13, he attended his grandfather's funeral, his mother's father. Watching the door during the service, waiting for his mother to arrive. And she never did. Determined to find out more, we pulled out his birth certificate, and that's when we discovered her real name, Doris, not Dorothy. That moment felt like finding a crack in a sealed door that we could finally push open. Back then, during this time, DNA testing was not widely available nor widely popular. And since I'm not biologically related to my step grandfather, my DNA was no use. We would have to be going to use paper trails. So that's exactly what I did. I had already developed a passion for genealogy and tracing family trees. So with the information that I had, her name and age, I turned to the internet and started digging. Doris had been born in a small Iowa town. But after my grandfather was born, she simply vanished. There were no records of her that I could find anywhere. So, since there were no official records, I actually had stumbled upon a post in an Ancestry forum. There used to be a section where members could ask questions about people they wanted information on or who they were searching for. I found another woman who was also searching for Doris. Her name was Linda, and she said that Doris was her grandmother. So I got in contact with her, and she had her father's birth certificate that listed Doris as his mother. So I know we had the same Doris. She also shared with me that Doris had abandoned 3 of her children in an orphanage. One of those was her father. So she wanted to locate all the other children, the siblings. Where were they at, and what happened to Doris? So I asked my grandfather if he knew anything about his mother having any additional children. He did not. However, he did share with me that he had an older sister named Betty. Betty had the same last name as the 3 children that had been left behind in the orphanage. But unfortunately, Betty, at the age of 17, tragically died. She was a young bride, and she was in an automobile with her husband. Her husband was driving. He was only 16 years old. Their car stalled on the train tracks, and unfortunately, their car was hit by that train. Betty was killed, and her husband lived. So that accident had happened shortly before Doris vanished. As I researched more, I discovered that Doris had been married once before, and they had 4 children, Betty being one of them. After their divorce, she was granted custody to all 4 children. However, she left 3 of them in an orphanage and only kept Betty. After Betty's death, she disappeared again. My step-grandfather's siblings rejected this discovery. The news of additional children, they believed that it tarnished the memory of their mother that they really never knew. But I continued with my search. I came across a comment on another post about Doris from a woman named Carol. Carol said Doris was her aunt, so I've got in contact with her, and she shared some information. She said Doris had ran off with a man whose last name was Vanders and had left the state of Ohio, and she shared that state with me. She said Doris wasn't really discussed in the family. She was almost like the black sheep. She had been branded as unhappy and unsettled. So now I have a state that Doris supposedly ran off to and the last name of a man that she possibly ran off with. And that's all it took. I found her. She had taken on the last name Vanders, even though she wasn't legally married to the man that she ran off with. She had 2 more daughters with this man, Gabby and Terry. These are her 2 daughters. Strangely, to add confusion, Gabby and Terry named their daughters after each other. So Gabby named her daughter Terry, and Terry named her daughter Gabby. Despite having Terry and Gabby's birth certificates, I did not have any luck with locating them on any social media platform. So I did a little bit more digging, and I found that Terry, Doris's granddaughter, had a son. She named her son after Doris's maiden name. So his middle name was Doris's maiden name. So I knew that I was still traveling down the right line. Luckily, Terry's son had a Facebook page. And as I scrolled through it, there wasn't a lot of interaction, but there was one person who liked all of his posts. This person was using a cartoon avatar as their image and a cartoon character's name. So there was no personal information. But what I decided to do next is scroll through this cartoon character's Facebook page. And in the comments, somebody referred to her as Terry. So I knew that this cartoon character was actually Terry's Facebook page. So by the time I get to this point, it's already 2 years into the search. We're almost in 2 years. We had located what happened to all 3 of the children that had been placed in an orphanage, and unfortunately, all 3 had already passed away. So now that I've got Terry, the granddaughter's Facebook page, I do send her a message. I explained everything, my research, my connection to Doris, and how I believed she could help fill in the blanks of a mystery decades in the making. But I got nothing, no response, for over 1 year. 1 whole year. On a Christmas morning, Terry finally responded. She confirmed Doris was her grandmother, but she said she had no idea about any previous families. She grew up close to her grandmother. She claimed that her grandmother Doris raised her. And so she is shocked by the suggestion that she might have abandoned 7 children and 2 husbands. Her initial reaction, of course, is to question everything. Her and her mother believed that I might be scamming them. So I sent everything I had. Photographs, newspapers, marriage records. I had a newspaper record talking about her divorce to her first husband. Orphanage information. I had documents to the orphanage. And even a picture of Doris with her second husband and their 3 children, my grandfather included. A complete family picture. Her response? Complete disbelief. Total shock. She said it knocked her off her chair. In her eyes, Doris was a loving, nurturing matriarch. The idea that she could have walked away from so many lives was unthinkable and almost monstrous. And though the evidence was undeniable, the emotional wall was too high. Our contact did not go much further, and I understood because some truths are too hard to swallow all at once. Doris had only passed away 5 years earlier, so we had just missed her. By the time I got to this point in the story, we're 3 years in. So in reality, Doris had only been gone 2 years once we started to search for her. Eventually, I entered Doris into my family tree. A few months later, I received an Ancestry message from a woman named Gabby asking if Doris was a certain height. She's just trying to verify that this Doris is the Doris she knows. I assumed that this was Terry's mother, but this was Gabby, someone else. Terry's first cousin, because there's a confusion with the way that they've done their names in this family. So I then found out that their family had fractured years earlier. Gabby had her own version of Doris's story. She said that her and her mother had placed Doris in a beautiful senior living facility where she would be comfortable and well cared for. But Terry and her mother disagreed with this arrangement, and they removed her and brought her home to their house. So this disagreement had splintered the family, and neither side had anything nice to say about each other. So to Gabby, her grandmother Doris was a wanderer, a woman who moved from town to town, working odd jobs, caring for children, but never really settling, almost like a gypsy, she called her. And maybe that's who Doris truly was, a woman shaped by loss, tragedy, and a restlessness that took her from one life to another, over and over. She became a ghost in many people's stories, but in truth, she was never really gone, just hidden, misremembered, forgotten by some, but glorified by others. And while the trail of paperwork and digital clues led us to the truth, it did not lead us to unity. None of Doris's living children connected. None of these half-siblings met each other, called, or formed any kind of bond, the ones that were living. Despite being linked by blood, separated only by time and circumstances, the discovery of Doris did not bring the family together. It only brought more distance. Some were hurt, some were angry, some remained in denial, and some simply did not want to look back. But for me and my step-grandfather, it was about giving a name to a woman who had been forgotten. It was about restoring a piece of his identity that he had been missing since he was only 2 years old. He finally knew who his mother was, not the fantasy, not the silence, but the full truth, however imperfect it was. That in the end is what genealogy gives us. Not always a reunion, not always a reconciliation, but the truth, and sometimes that's enough. So if you enjoyed this genealogical journey, please drop some orange hearts in the comments and let's hear your thoughts. What was going on with Doris? Why did she abandon 3 families and keep this secret to herself, never sharing, ever, leaving all these children behind without answers, and almost deceiving the ones that she stayed with? If you find yourself in your own genealogical mystery, including DNA, go ahead and reach out to us at DNAngels.org. We would love to help take you on your journey and guide you and hold you through this. Also, something to keep in mind, behind every reunion is someone who made it possible. That someone could be you. When you give to DNA Angels, you help rewrite stories, reconnect loved ones, and restore identities. So join our summer fundraiser and be a part of the miracle. So please consider, if you enjoy our stories, making a donation to DNAangels.org.